What's going on, Getting On family? It's Odell Bazell back with another amazing interview with an amazing person that's going to show you how to get known. If you've been following this channel at all, you know it's all about getting known, getting more people to know you so that more people can pay you. And I'm excited to be presenting to you for the first time, if you've never heard of him, or for the second or third time, if you have heard him or seen him in these speaking and podcast streets. Jonathan Jones, my guy, two-time TEDx speaker, former college athlete, multiple best-selling author, podcast coach, your favorite speaker's favorite podcast coach. Jonathan, man, how you feeling, bro?
Man, I'm good. I'm good. I'm honored to have the privilege to be on with you and talk with the Getting On family. So thank you for for having me.
Good stuff. So let's dive into it, man. Podcasting. A lot of people still don't know what it is. It blows my mind, but you know, we're in the weeds of this thing. We have podcasts, we have YouTube channels. We've been doing this for some years, and some people still never know. I had to explain to my grandma the other day what a podcast was. I thought, oh, it's only old people, but then I had to explain it to one of my siblings. One of my siblings is like, what's a podcast? So what is a podcast?
So first, let me say this. A lot of people, a lot of times have encountered or consumed podcast content. They just may have not known that it was a podcast. In its textbook form, broken down, a podcast is an audio platform that you can consume on your phone, on the computer. And a lot of times you might listen to it on Apple, but more currently or more recently, you've been consuming it by way of YouTube. But it's somebody who's sitting there doing talk radio, basically, is the best form to explain what podcast is now. It's talk radio. Everybody has their own station, talk about whatever they desire to talk about.
Right. That's the best thing. It's I told my grandma, it's radio on the internet, basically, like in its simplest form. So Jonathan, if somebody is watching this or listening to this and they're like, okay, become an industry leader with your own podcast, is that really possible? And if it is, how does let's talk to the entrepreneur first, the speaker, the consultant, the trainer trying to get more clients. How can they become an industry leader with their own podcast?
Certainly. So the traditional way, or the way before getting known, would be giving somebody a cold call, right? Trying to find a referral, trying to find a connection to get in front of somebody to have the opportunity to pitch them on what you do and why it's needed and why it's necessary. But now with the podcast, you have the opportunity to take a second and identify what's your expertise, what's your experience. And as you begin to break down what this is, right, you begin to break down that you're the best plumber. And then the next episode, you come in and then you tell people 10 issues that every home will face if they don't get a plumbing tune-up or whatever you want to call it. So now you're in a spot and in a space to where you can really hit people's pain points, who are like, oh, that's me. And then they find the relatability. And then you can come back and then give them some solutions. But at the end of the day, if you're the author of the solution, they need that specific individual to walk them through the process. Because we can give people books all day. You can write the formula, the blueprint down in your book. People still are going to get lost in the minor details because they're going to say, well, how does that apply to my specific situation? I know you're a plumber and you work on homes, but does that work if I stay in a mobile home, right? It's just people finding those things. So you become the expert by way of you tooting your own horn, but you also educating people through your platform. So then they'll be able to say, I need you, and you've identified to me why I need you, instead of the other way around.
I love that. And hey, if any plumbers are listening, you just got a whole masterclass really, really fast. But I want to add to it as well. If you are an entrepreneur, you should definitely, if Jonathan is taking coaching clients, you should definitely become a client of his, because he allows you not to get caught up in the minor details. So that's a really big thing. I'm glad you brought that up. So if I'm a professional, Jonathan, and our clients are professionals, we've worked with companies, we work with colleges, organizations. If I am that executive at a company, if I am, even working at a nonprofit, how can I use podcasting to help either my company move forward or help me as an individual move forward in my career?
Excellent question. So I've heard Russell Brunson say it many times, but a confused mind says no. And a lot of times within our company, we think that people understand the inner workings of our company based on our understanding of us working at the company for 5 years, 10 years, however many years it might be. But when you take the time to connect with a potential client, then you take the time for you to create a different level of intimacy with those individuals, right? So a lot of times your company may be known for X, right? We'll say your company is known for shipping, right? You're just the best company for shipping. But some people might get connected based off that. Other people might get connected more so based off emotions. What's the story behind the company? Is this a mom and a pop company that came up? Or is this a company that can do the job most efficient because they have a philanthropic arm? So the way you leverage a podcast is by now showing people why you do the things that you do. How do you do these things and why is it important for that company? So as we're unpacking these things, now you're connecting with people in different spots and different spaces, because if they see you have a philanthropic arm and you give to a certain cause based on every so many packages you ship, somebody might say, well, I don't have the time to give back, but I like that cause. Let me do business with that company. Or if they just like that you're really efficient, you're straight to it, and they're like, I don't have time to waste, so I need a company that's efficient, then they might want to go with you there. But at the end of the day, it's unpacking who the company is to the customer. The customer needs to know why you do the things that you do, how you do them. And then that creates a different level of connection and intimacy.
Connection and intimacy. I hope you wrote that down, because nowadays the consumer has the option, or they have the choice to go with whomever. And by connecting with them, being in their ears, being in their mind on a regular basis, creating some content through that, I think that's an amazing suggestion for those that are listening that are in a company. If I'm Jonathan, if I am, and a lot of people on LinkedIn, they'll say I am a hospitality professional that is driven, et cetera, et cetera. They'll have a generic in their mind to say, well, I might not stay with this company for too long. And we know the statistics say that nowadays people don't stay at companies for 15, 20, 30 years anymore. It's about every 5 years people change. So there's a lot of job mobility there. How can what I'll call as an ambitious professional that might be looking for upward mobility or leaving, how can they use podcasting to their advantage?
Well, one, you would take time to assess what's your role at your company, or what's been the role that you've done for 5 years, 10 years, whatever it might be. And you don't just want to identify what you've done because you might not necessarily enjoy it. So it's a marriage between the two. What have you done? And also what have you enjoyed doing? Right. And then we take a step back and then we say, okay, well, how can I begin to build my credibility or my authority based on what I've done over those years, right? So let's say you're a consultant for a Fortune 500 company or whatever. You can then begin to take on people within your company to have calls with them and assist them in what you've been doing. And then, Odell, we can do one of your things. I've seen you do this. Then you can do case studies from those individuals and from those calls. You can sit down and you can do solo episodes and like, hey, I just talked with a professional who was lacking certain experiences to put on their resume. They had this career. You can go vague, right, to just create some ambiguity for the individual. But then you can say, based on what they did, they were lost on what they can use and leverage as experience. If I was them, I would do this, 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 this. So now you're beginning to build up credibility. And then by doing that, you can also leverage this to get some testimonials from those people. They can speak to what you did for them in those consulting calls. So now, while you're working for a corporate structure, you're still building an empire on the side. So when it does come time for you to make that transition for upward mobility, you've done what you've been asked to or assigned to in your specific role for the company. But even further than that, now you have these added benefits you can show. Well, I helped this person get more awareness on their resume. I helped this person understand how they can leverage previous experiences in their job. So now you have an army of testimonials and an army of authority that you can now leverage to wherever you go. If this is for individual clients or this is to move up the corporate ladder, because this is areas that you have to make you more appeasing and stand out to the untrained eye.
Man, that's really good. And listen, I tell people all the time, I'm a proud capitalist. And you starting to talk money, we're talking about upward mobility in companies, talking about being promoted and all those different things. I personally believe that you can use podcasting to make money. I've done it specifically, but I want you to speak to some of those people they're like, okay, Odell, okay, Jonathan, I get it. A podcast can help me be an industry leader. How can I make money with it? What are some ways that people watching or listening can make money from podcasting?
Gotcha. So the one that people typically talk about is I'm gonna lay out some that people typically talk about, and I'm gonna lay out a holistic way that people can get the bag from podcasting. So people get really excited. Oh, ad sponsorships, and get people to sponsor episodes, which can be great. But I would also advise you that if you're selling ad sponsorships and you're getting that money, just be prepared to help somebody return on their investment, right? So if they just want awareness, then great. You putting them on a slot on your show, then they're going to get awareness. But if they want to see some clicks and you can't guarantee them clicks, just be aware that that might not be the model for you. Okay. But then if you're going back to the plumber analogy, if you're a plumber and then you're laying out, different problems, different pain points, then the plumber can also have a link down in their show notes to where they can then do some consulting, right? They can do some virtual plumbing trainings, right? Because nobody wants to be in the spot to where their toilet's overflowing. They can't reach a plumber. The plumber can't get there 3 days down the line. You're like, I need help now, right? I don't care how much it costs. I need help now. So you can set yourself up for consulting sessions. And now you have a client that's already primed based on the content that you shared, pain points. You can take the content that you recorded as the podcast. You can put that content behind a paywall, right? Because just because you record all these interviews doesn't mean all of them have to go mainstream. So some of them you can put behind a paywall, or you can record an interview and then put a portion of it, like an after show type deal, behind a paywall. And then people who are a part of your community, they can get access to that. And also you can set it up to where people who are a part of the community can submit questions to where you ask those specific questions. Also, we can transcribe episodes. You can record episodes, transcribe them, turn it into an ebook. You can record them and you can turn it to an audio book, right? So that's two. And then the way I really love Odell is, of course, man, speak, man. You got to speak. You're already on the mic. You're already speaking. You're already sharing expertise. You've already developed your authority, right? But even if you haven't, I'm gonna give this quick example, but even if you haven't established your authority, it was the summer right after the pandemic. This was right when I switched gears on my podcast. So I started up a new podcast called Beyond the Ball with Jonathan Jones, wanted to get in front of student athletes. And I'm like, man, it's a pandemic. I'm not going on nobody campus speaking right now. But I said, what can I do? So I started the podcast. And then a young lady from Vanderbilt University asked me, she said, Jonathan, well, usually when you speak to schools, What do you speak about? She said, we're not bringing people in, but we're doing virtual sessions. What can you speak about? I calculated in my mind, what I talk about on my last few episodes on my podcast. I said, mental health. I said, helping athletes transition. And I said, helping them a little bit around branding. She said, mental health. That's one of the focuses for this year. Would you be willing to speak on that? Yes, ma'am. Odell, secret. I used Google and I used a little bit more research to go in depth to put together a quality training for them. Yes, I had service level understanding of mental health, but since then I've done more research and I've delved into it a little bit more, got my bachelor's in psychology. But the fact of the matter is, she wasn't asking me there to give her a keynote. She was asking me there, can I talk about the subject, which I could. So when you set your authority up, then you position yourself for people to pay you. And when you position yourself for people to pay you, that's the opportunity for you to decide, well, what way would they best receive the information? Ebook, physical book, audio book, keynote, membership. You make the call.
I love that. And I was jotting some notes down here. So if you are wondering, well, how can I make money from podcasts? There's ads, but to Jonathan's point, that's one business model that it takes volume. So you have to show, we get thousands upon thousands of listeners, we get this demographic, all of that. So for the beginner, it might not be the best one, but I love the consulting. So just a simple, hey, here's 10 ways to do this, 7 ways to do that. If you are a speaker or a consultant, all you have to do is just speak to that particular group of people. Just like, look, Getting On Marketing, the YouTube channel, where I talk about, hey, if you're a small business owner, if you're an expert entrepreneur, this is going to help you get known by more people. So that's who we're targeting. Membership, I love that, having a paywall for your content. So for example, what that might look like is, I'm here with Jonathan Jones and we're talking about all this stuff. Hey, for our subscribers, for our community, you're going to be going deep with Jonathan about how to create a paywall for your content. Make sure you click the link to join our community. So you can do it that way. Products, transcriptions, all of that stuff, using as speaking. You all know how I feel about profitable public speaking. So those are just some ways that you can do that. Go ahead, Jonathan.
I was clearing my throat. I'm sorry. I was clearing my throat. I was trying to clear my throat. I didn't hit the mute button. That's my bad. That's my bad.
No, it's all good. All good. So now that we know, okay, this having a podcast is great. This is how I can make money. How do I start this thing? I'm listening. I'm the person that tuned in by accident, or maybe I follow you, you follow me, or something like that. Like, okay, finally, gosh, I've been hearing about podcasts forever. How do I get started? What's the first step somebody should do today?
Gotcha. So I don't want to really get into the technical stuff because that's all on YouTube, Odell. It's all on YouTube. But the first thing that you really want to do is you want to really get clear on the purpose of your podcast. This is why I had 275 episodes of my first podcast and I had to quit it because I wasn't intentional on the purpose. I was inspiring everybody who was going to be my audience, but they weren't going to translate to clients. So I said, I got to put that thing to bed. So you want to determine, am I using this podcast to establish my authority? Am I using this podcast to help me generate leads? Am I using this podcast for fun? Which, I mean, that's cute if that's what you want to do. I wouldn't suggest that. I would suggest it be fun and some of the other things. But then the other one would be, am I using this podcast as the marketing arm for my business, right? Because if we're not intentional about what the purpose is, then it's going to make the next step even harder, which the next step would be like, okay, how do I monetize this thing? And then you talk to somebody and let's say they're ready to spend some ad dollars, but then they're like, okay, well, who's your target audience? You're like, I don't know. Like, okay, well, what's the content you talk about on your podcast? Whatever I feel, I just do it for fun. They're gonna be like, you're not serious and I don't want to talk to you anymore. So we got to get clear on the purpose, because when we have the purpose, that's the foundation. And then we build upon that.
So get clear on the purpose. Before you buy a mic, before you change your background and get your office done and all the stuff, or clear out a closet or wherever you do it, figure out the purpose. Because I love this quote, Dr. Miles Monroe, may he rest in peace. When the purpose of a thing is unknown, abuse is inevitable. And so you have to do that. And before we get you out of here, Jonathan, are there any resources that you can offer the Get Known family to help them? And they're like, maybe they're lifting weights, maybe they're on the go, dropping the kids off at daycare or school or something like that. And they're like, all right, when I come back to this, I need to go here to download this from Jonathan. What is that they can get?
Yes, sir, man. Just for your audience, for the Get Known family, man, you can go to www. I don't know if you put the www or not, but just to be safe, www.getpaidwithpodcasting.com/book, right? /book. So there they can get my free book. I'll ship you the book.
Say it again. Say it again.
www.getpaidwithpodcasting.com/book.
Cool. We're gonna put that right there just for the people watching. Does that look right?
Yes, sir. That looks right. That looks right. And yeah, they can get a copy of my Get Paid with Podcasting book, and it's showing you everything we talked about today, but in so much more depth. I walk through the process, getting a podcast, starting a podcast, marketing, monetizing. I break down like 20 ways to monetize a podcast in the book. So I just encourage everybody to go there. And man, I'll see y'all on these podcasting streets.
I love it. Hey, Get Known family, I know what to do. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe. Comment below. Let us know what your favorite takeaway was. Hit the bell so that you can get notifications when new videos come. Jonathan, appreciate your time. Appreciate your attention. And y'all know how we do. We'll see you at the top, not from the top. God bless.
Peace.